The house was quiet, but not in a way that felt empty. It was the kind of quiet that carried anticipation, like the moments before a long-awaited gift is unwrapped. Outside, the sun was just starting to rise, its golden light filtering through the thin curtains and casting warm streaks across the living room. The parents sat together, holding hands, their eyes reflecting both excitement and nervousness. Every few minutes, they glanced at the clock on the wall, as if it could somehow make the hours pass faster. The months of pregnancy had been filled with small, ordinary moments that now seemed extraordinary. The father remembered how he had spent countless nights reading parenting books, trying to memorize every detail about how to care for a newborn. The mother remembered her long walks in the park, feeling the gentle kicks and twists of the baby inside her. Every movement had felt like a message, a tiny reassurance that soon they would finally meet the little life they had been dreaming about. Friends and family had been visiting over the past few weeks, offering congratulations, sharing advice, and laughing at stories from their own experiences. Some brought meals, others brought gifts, and a few just brought themselves, ready to listen to every anxious thought. But now, in the quiet of the early morning, it was just the two of them. The world outside seemed to wait with bated breath just like them. The mother felt the familiar tightening in her belly and knew the time was near. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. There was a strange mix of fear and excitement, a blend of emotions that she hadn't been able to fully explain. The father squeezed her hand and whispered that everything would be fine. He spoke with a confidence he didn't entirely feel, but he hoped that would be enough to calm her. They remembered the doctor's words from their last visit. Every birth is different. You can prepare, but the moment it happens, nothing can really compare to what you feel. Those words had stayed with them, repeating in their minds like a gentle reminder that the journey ahead would be unpredictable, full of surprises. The preparations at home had been simple but thoughtful. The nursery was painted in soft, calming colors with shelves filled with tiny clothes, books, and toys. A small mobile hung above the crib, spinning slowly, its colors reflecting in the morning light. The parents had spent hours arranging everything perfectly, imagining how it would feel to bring the baby into this space. Yet all the planning and organizing could not prepare them for the moment that was about to arrive. The mother's breathing grew heavier, her body signaling that it was time. The father helped her move to the car, their movements careful and slow, each step measured with love and concern. The drive to the hospital was quiet, filled with a tension that was almost tangible. They didn't speak much, but the silence was comfortable, a shared understanding that words were not necessary. Each bump on the road, each turn, felt magnified by the anticipation, and yet neither of them wanted to break the quiet that held them together. When they arrived at the hospital, the staff immediately took over, guiding them through the procedures and preparations. The mother was admitted, and the father followed closely, holding her hand as the nurses and doctors worked with gentle efficiency. They were surrounded by a team of people, all experienced, all calm. Yet the parents felt as though time had slowed down just for them. Each contraction, each moment was a step closer to meeting the child they had imagined for so long. The waiting room had been empty. Now it was filled with a quiet hum of activity. Nurses moved in and out, checking monitors and making notes, their presence reassuring. The mother focused on her breathing, repeating what the nurses had taught her, while the father stayed by her side, offering water, wiping her forehead, and whispering encouragement. It was a team effort, but unlike any team they had ever known. This team consisted of just the two of them and the tiny life that had yet to make its entrance. Outside the hospital room, the world continued as usual. Birds chirped, cars passed by, and people went about their routines, unaware of the small miracle about to unfold within the hospital walls. Yet for these two parents, the world had narrowed to a single point of focus. Everything else faded into the background. There was only the anticipation, the hope, and the love they already felt for a baby they had not yet met. The mother felt another contraction, stronger this time, and leaned into the father for support. He held her, whispered that she was doing perfectly, and reminded her of every promise they had made to each other for their child. It was a moment of unity, a shared strength that made them both feel braver. The fear was still there, but it was mingled with an unshakable hope that soon everything would change for the better. Memories of their journey to this point flooded their minds. The early days of pregnancy, the gentle excitement of hearing the heartbeat for the first time, the countless doctor visits and the nights spent imagining what the baby would look like. They thought of the future too, the first smile, the first steps, the first words. Each memory, each dream, carried the weight of love and anticipation, making the moments before birth feel like the opening chapter of a story that was theirs alone. As the contractions grew more intense, the parents found themselves holding on to each other more tightly. Every moment was a reminder of how much they cared, how much they had waited, and how much life was about to change. There was a magic in the air, a sense that something incredible was about to happen, something that would forever alter their lives in ways they could not yet imagine. The mother, feeling both pain and excitement, focused on the rhythm of her breath. The father mirrored her focus, silently counting with her, feeling each beat of her heart and each surge of energy from the baby. It was an unspoken connection, a bond formed in the quiet strength of shared anticipation. Every second brought them closer, not just to the moment of birth, but to a new chapter filled with love, challenge, and the joy of welcoming life into the world. And then, as if time itself had slowed to watch, the first signs of the birth grew stronger. The mother's determination shone through the pain, and the father's unwavering support created a bubble of safety and love around them. The hospital room became a world of its own, separate from everything else, a place where the ordinary had been left behind, and the extraordinary was about to begin. They did not know what surprises awaited them, nor could they imagine the small, unexpected detail that would soon make this birth unforgettable. But in that quiet, stretching moment, all that mattered was the bond they shared, the love that had grown over months, and the tiny life that was ready to enter their world. Nothing could have prepared them fully, and yet they were ready to face whatever came, together, hand in hand, hearts open, and minds full of hope. The anticipation was almost unbearable now, a mixture of tension and excitement so thick it felt tangible. The mother's breathing was rapid, the father's heart raced in tandem. Outside, the first rays of the sun had fully emerged, bathing the room in light as if the universe itself was acknowledging the moment. This was it. The moment they had waited for, dreamed about, and prepared for in every possible way. A new life was about to begin, and nothing could ever be the same again. The hospital room was bright now, the sunlight streaming through the window and bouncing off the pale walls. The mother's breaths came in quick, shallow waves, and she clutched the father's hand with a strength that made him feel both proud and helpless at the same time. Each contraction surged through her like a wave, yet in her eyes, there was a determination that refused to falter. He whispered words of encouragement, holding her close, trying to share in her pain while shielding her from the fear that lingered in the corners of their minds. The nurses moved with a gentle precision, checking monitors, guiding the mother through each stage of labor, and speaking in calm tones that reassured them both. They had seen this scene countless times before, but to the parents everything was new, overwhelming and full of emotion. Every second felt stretched, charged with expectation. They could feel that soon, very soon, their child would be in their arms. Then finally the moment arrived. The nurse encouraged the mother to push, and she focused all her energy on the task. The father's grip on her hand tightened, offering strength without words, a silent promise that he was there. The air in the room seemed to hold its breath with them, every eye focused, every movement deliberate, and every heartbeat echoing in their minds. The baby was coming. The mother's face glistened with sweat, her breaths harsh and loud, but there was a spark of exhilaration in her eyes. The father kept whispering, telling her how strong she was, how close they were, and how proud he already was of both of them. Time felt both slow and fast, a paradox that made the anticipation almost unbearable. And then, in a surge of energy and effort, the baby emerged, crying loudly, a sound that filled the room and pierced straight through the parents' hearts. The nurse placed the baby gently on the mother's chest. The tiny body was warm and fragile, and the parents could hardly believe what they were seeing. Tears streamed down their faces as they gazed at the newborn, the perfect combination of themselves, yet entirely new and full of life. They had imagined this moment countless times, but the reality was more vivid, more powerful, more overwhelming than any dream. Yet as they looked closer, the parents noticed something unexpected. The baby had a feature they had never anticipated. It was small, delicate, and yet immediately striking. A tiny birthmark shaped like a faint star on the shoulder, a swirl of unusual hair, or perhaps an extra finger. The surprise sent a ripple of shock through both parents, and for a moment, the room seemed to pause. The nurses, sensing their surprise, smiled reassuringly and explained that the feature was harmless, simply a unique part of the baby's appearance. The father's eyes met the mother's, a mixture of wonder and disbelief passing between them. They had come prepared for almost everything: feeding schedules, diapers, sleepless nights, but nothing could have prepared them for this. The initial shock quickly melted into awe. The baby with its unexpected feature seemed even more precious, a living testament to the surprises that life could bring. Family members were called, and one by one they entered the room, their faces lighting up as they saw the newborn. Each reaction was different. Some gasped in surprise, others smiled with joy, and a few paused, taking a moment to absorb the uniqueness of the baby. The parents shared quiet laughs and whispers, answering questions and offering explanations while holding their child close, feeling the warmth and life against their skin. The doctors and nurses offered guidance, helping the parents understand the feature, reassuring them that it posed no harm, and encouraging them to simply enjoy the moment. The mother marveled at how tiny and perfect the baby's fingers and toes were, and yet how one small detail made this child extraordinary. The father gently brushed the baby's hair back from the forehead, laughing softly at the unexpected curl that seemed to have its own personality. Time passed in a blur of feeding, diaper changes, and gentle rocking. The parents were exhausted, but every moment was filled with wonder. The baby's eyes opened wide and curious, as if trying to take in the new world. The unique feature became a point of fascination, a small detail that made the child even more memorable. Friends and family called or sent messages, all eager to hear the story of the birth and the unexpected surprise that had made it so remarkable. As night fell, the hospital room grew quiet again. The mother held the baby close, feeling the rise and fall of tiny breaths, and the father sat beside her, stroking the baby's soft hair. They talked in whispers, recounting every detail of the day, laughing softly at the unexpected twists, and sharing in the deep, profound joy that comes with new life. They knew that this feature, small as it was, would be a part of the child's story forever, something that would make every memory even more special. The parents took turns holding the baby, each finding moments of peace and reflection amidst the exhaustion. They talked about the future, about first steps, first words, and the countless ordinary moments that would now be tinged with the extraordinary. The baby, oblivious to the world's expectations, slept peacefully, a tiny symbol of life's surprises and the unpredictable beauty of creation. In the quiet hours of the night, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the long months of preparation, the anxious waiting, the shared hopes and dreams. They realized that this unexpected feature, small as it might seem to the world, had changed their perspective on everything. It was a reminder that life was full of surprises, and that sometimes the unexpected could bring the greatest joy. The room was calm, filled only with the soft sounds of breathing and the occasional coo or sigh from the baby. The parents felt a deep connection, not just with their child, but with each other, strengthened by the shared experience of birth and the unexpected moment that had made it unforgettable. They knew that challenges would come, that sleepless nights and worries were inevitable, but in that moment, nothing mattered except the love that surrounded them. As dawn approached, the hospital room was bathed in soft light once more. The baby stirred slightly, opening tiny eyes, and the parents responded with gentle smiles and soothing words. They took turns holding and rocking the child, cherishing every small detail, the warmth of the skin, the softness of the hair, the tiny hands that grasped their fingers instinctively. The unexpected feature was there, a small mark of uniqueness, but it no longer felt surprising or unusual. It felt natural, a part of the child's identity, a part of the story they would carry with them forever. By the end of the day, the parents had begun to adjust to the reality of their new life. They learned to anticipate the baby's needs, to recognize patterns, and to navigate the overwhelming flood of emotion that came with the first day of parenthood. Yet through it all, the tiny, unexpected feature remained a source of wonder and joy, a reminder that life's surprises could be beautiful and meaningful. The father watched as the mother gently placed the baby in the crib for a brief moment of rest, their eyes meeting with a silent understanding. This day, full of unexpected twists and moments of intense emotion, had changed them forever. The birth had been everything they had hoped for and more, and the small feature that had initially shocked them had become a cherished detail, a story they would tell again and again. As night fell and the hospital quieted, the parents sat together exhausted but content. They talked softly, planning the journey ahead, imagining the years to come and feeling a deep, unshakable love for the tiny life that had arrived with both expected and unexpected joys. The first day of their child's life had been a whirlwind of emotion, challenge and wonder, but through it all, the parents had discovered that sometimes the surprises that life brings are the moments that make it truly unforgettable. The first days after the birth were a whirlwind of activity, emotion, and learning. The parents were adjusting to a new rhythm, one dictated not by schedules or plans, but by the tiny life that had come into their world with its own needs, cries, and unexpected surprises. The feature that had surprised them at birth had become a quiet fascination, a small detail that made the baby unique, and yet it was slowly blending into the larger experience of parenthood. Family and friends continued to visit, bringing gifts, meals, and their own excitement. Their reactions were varied, some expressing awe at the baby's appearance, others asking questions, and a few offering gentle advice on how to handle the newborn. The parents welcomed the attention but were careful to focus on their child, understanding that this tiny life depended on them entirely. Each visitor seemed to notice the unique feature immediately, and each had a slightly different response. Some smiled warmly, saying it added character, while others paused, unsure of how to react. The parents, however, had begun to see it as a part of the baby's personality, an early sign of individuality. The mother spent hours holding the baby close, feeling the soft warmth and the steady heartbeat against her chest. She marveled at how tiny and delicate the fingers and toes were, and how the baby's unexpected feature gave the child a distinct identity. The father often joined in, brushing the hair back from the baby's forehead or softly humming lullabies that he hoped would become familiar and comforting. They discovered together the simple joys of rocking the baby to sleep, listening to the small sighs, and watching the eyes blink and focus with curiosity. At night, when the hospital was quiet, the parents would talk softly about what had happened and what they hoped for the future. They laughed about the moments of surprise and shared stories of anticipation from the pregnancy. The unexpected feature, which had initially been shocking, became a symbol of the wonder and unpredictability of life. They realized that it would be part of the child's story, a detail that would make each memory richer and more meaningful. Feeding times were moments of connection, even in the exhaustion of sleepless nights. The mother learned to anticipate the baby's hunger cues, while the father offered gentle guidance, always ready to step in when needed. They developed a rhythm, a silent understanding that allowed them to care for the child as a team. The baby's unique feature became part of the routine, a point of gentle conversation and a reminder of how extraordinary even ordinary moments could be. As the days went on, they faced the typical challenges of new parenthood: diaper changes, sleepless nights, and the constant attention a newborn demanded were balanced with moments of quiet joy and discovery. The unexpected feature sparked curiosity from nurses and visitors, but the parents grew confident in explaining it simply and lovingly. They found that sharing the story of the baby's unique trait brought smiles and sometimes laughter, reinforcing their own sense of acceptance and pride. The first pediatrician visit brought further reassurance. The doctor examined the baby carefully, checking vital signs, reflexes, and growth. When the feature was mentioned, the doctor smiled and explained that it was harmless, a natural variation that would not affect the baby's health. This reassurance lifted a weight from the parents' minds, allowing them to focus fully on bonding and enjoying the early days of life together. Outside the walls of the hospital, the world carried on. But inside, the parents were creating a small universe of love, care, and fascination. They documented every detail, taking photos, writing down observations, and sharing moments with close family members. The feature that had surprised them became a cherished detail, one that they could point to and laugh about, or use to explain the uniqueness of their child to those who had not yet met the baby. Friends often asked about the baby's temperament, the first sounds, and tiny gestures. The parents found themselves marveling at how quickly they learned to read the baby's needs, understanding the subtle differences in cries, movements, and expressions. The unexpected feature became a conversation starter, But more than that, it became a bridge, helping them explain how small differences could be beautiful and meaningful. Each visitor left with a story, a small memory, and a smile, contributing to the growing sense of community around the baby. The parents also discovered moments of vulnerability. There were times when the baby cried endlessly and nothing seemed to soothe. There were nights when exhaustion made them question their ability to care for a new life. But in those moments, they found strength in each other and in the love they had for the baby. The unexpected feature, once a source of surprise, now reminded them of resilience, of life's ability to bring the extraordinary into the most ordinary moments. The baby began to respond to voices and touch, turning the head toward familiar sounds and curling the tiny fingers around their parents' hands. Every small gesture felt monumental, and the parents celebrated each milestone no matter how small. The feature that had first startled them became part of these milestones, a detail that made every memory even more vivid. They imagined the future conversations they would have with the child, explaining that everyone is unique and that differences are part of what makes life interesting and beautiful. Even in simple routines like bathing and dressing, the parents found joy. They laughed at small surprises, marveled at the softness of the skin, and admired the delicate details of their child's body. The unexpected feature became a point of gentle humor and storytelling, a part of the daily narrative that made each day memorable. They realized that parenthood was not just about providing care, but about noticing and celebrating the small details that made their child who they were. The first week began to blend into the second, and the parents noticed subtle changes in the baby. Eyes followed movement more deliberately, hands grasped with intention, and tiny coos began to form a language of their own. The feature that had surprised them now seemed like a small star in the constellation of their child's identity, something that marked the baby as unique in the most ordinary of ways. They felt grateful for every smile, every sigh, and every tiny gesture, understanding that these moments would never come again. Visitors continued to ask questions and marvel at the baby's uniqueness, but the parents had grown comfortable sharing the story. They noticed that the reactions varied. Some were curious, some admiring, some surprised, but every reaction helped reinforce the parents' own acceptance and appreciation. They realized that the feature was more than a physical detail. It was a symbol of individuality, a reminder that life does not always follow expectations and that sometimes the unexpected could be the most beautiful part of a story. As the days went on, the parents found themselves reflecting on the journey that had led them here. The anticipation before birth, the intense moments of labor, the first cries, and the initial surprise of the feature, all of it had shaped their experience of parenthood. They shared quiet conversations in the dim light of the hospital room, imagining the child's future, dreaming of milestones, and understanding that every moment was precious. The baby's first interactions with family members were gentle and full of curiosity. The unique feature prompted questions, smiles, and laughter, helping to build a sense of connection and understanding. The parents noticed that the feature had already become a part of the family's story, something that would be remembered, discussed, and cherished for years to come. They began to see it not as an anomaly, but as a gift, a reminder of how life's surprises could be beautiful and meaningful. The first nights at the hospital became a routine, a rhythm of feeding, rocking, and quiet reflection. Exhaustion was constant, but the love and wonder far outweighed the fatigue. The parents discovered new depths of patience, creativity, and resilience, learning to navigate the delicate balance of caring for a newborn while embracing the unexpected. Every touch, every gaze, every small smile from the baby reinforced the profound connection they shared. As they prepared to leave the hospital, the parents felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. They were ready to bring the baby home, to continue the journey of discovery and growth in the familiar environment of their own space. The unique feature, once a source of surprise, had become a symbol of acceptance, love, and the beauty of individuality. They knew that life would continue to surprise them, but they felt ready to face it together, hand in hand, hearts full, and minds open. The final hours at the hospital were filled with packing, last-minute instructions from nurses, and heartfelt goodbyes. The parents held their baby close, feeling the weight and warmth of a life they had brought into the world. They reflected on the journey so far, understanding that the unexpected had already brought them lessons in patience, love, and resilience. The baby, with its tiny, unique feature, was a living reminder that life was full of surprises, and that sometimes, those surprises were the most precious moments of all. As they left the hospital, stepping into the sunlight, the parents felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey of birth had been extraordinary, filled with emotion, challenge, and wonder. The unexpected feature, once a shock, had become a cherished part of the baby's identity, a detail that made every moment richer and every memory more meaningful. They knew that the days ahead would continue to be filled with surprises, but they felt ready, confident, and full of love for the tiny life that had already changed everything. The first weeks at home were a blend of chaos, wonder, and discovery. The parents were adjusting to a new rhythm dictated entirely by their baby. Each day was a mixture of feeding, soothing, and learning to read the tiny signals that communicated hunger, discomfort, or contentment. Despite the exhaustion, there was a quiet joy that threaded through every moment, a reminder of the extraordinary life they had brought into the world. The baby's unexpected feature had already become a part of everyday life. What had once surprised them now felt natural, an integral part of the child's identity. Friends and neighbors who visited often noticed the feature and asked questions, but the parents had grown confident in explaining it simply and lovingly. They found that sharing the story of the feature brought smiles and even laughter, helping others understand that differences could be beautiful. It became less about the surprise and more about celebrating individuality, and they were proud to share that with the people around them. Feeding times were moments of connection. The mother had learned to anticipate the baby's cues, noticing small gestures or changes in breathing that indicated hunger. The father was always nearby, offering support, holding the baby during burping sessions, or simply providing comfort and reassurance. Each feeding became a shared experience, an opportunity to bond and communicate with their child in ways words could not express. The baby's little feature was a part of these moments, noticed by both parents and appreciated as a detail that made each encounter more special. Sleep was scarce, and every night brought its own set of challenges. The baby would wake frequently, needing comfort, feeding, or simply the warmth of a parent's touch. At times, exhaustion felt overwhelming, but the parents found strength in each other. They shared quiet moments in the nursery, rocking the baby, humming songs, and talking softly about hopes for the future. Even in these tired moments, the presence of the unique feature was a gentle reminder of the beauty of unpredictability, a small detail that made the child even more precious. The parents quickly learned the importance of flexibility and patience. A day that began with careful planning could turn into a whirlwind of unexpected events, from sudden bouts of crying to spilled bottles or diaper mishaps. Yet even in the chaos there was laughter and learning. Each challenge became a lesson in resilience, and the baby's unique feature often brought a moment of levity, a point of conversation that reminded them to celebrate the small joys amidst the difficulties. As the baby grew, the parents observed subtle changes. Tiny smiles emerged, eyes followed movements more deliberately, and small coos and gurgles hinted at the personality that was slowly unfolding. The unexpected feature, which had initially been a source of surprise, became a part of the baby's charm, something that reflected individuality and uniqueness. The parents found themselves imagining the future conversations they would have with their child, explaining that everyone is different and that differences are something to cherish. Visits from family continued, each encounter a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and love. Some family members were particularly fascinated by the feature, often asking to see it or remarking on how unique it made the baby. The parents embraced these moments as opportunities to share their story, using each visit to reinforce the idea that uniqueness is something to be celebrated rather than feared. The baby's presence, combined with the feature, became a focal point for connection, drawing people together and sparking conversations that were warm, gentle, and full of admiration. Daily routines were slowly established, with each parent taking turns caring for the baby during naps, feeding times, and play periods. The baby's tiny gestures, like reaching out for a hand or turning toward a familiar voice, became milestones that were celebrated quietly and privately. The feature that had been so unexpected now felt like a natural part of these moments, a reminder that even small details can carry profound meaning. Each day became a tapestry of love, learning, and appreciation for the life they had created. The parents found themselves reflecting often on the journey so far. They thought about the anticipation before birth, the intense experience of labor, and the surprise that had greeted them when they first saw their child. They realized that these experiences had strengthened their bond, not only with the baby, but also with each other. The unexpected feature, once a shock, had become a symbol of resilience, beauty, and the unpredictable nature of life. In quiet moments, the parents would sit together, the baby nestled between them, and talk softly about hopes and dreams for the future. They imagined the first words, the first steps, and the first days of school. They pictured milestones filled with laughter, learning, and growth. The unique feature became a symbol of individuality, a detail that would always remind them of how unpredictable and wonderful life could be. It was a constant thread woven through the early days of parenthood, a reminder that even the smallest surprises could carry deep meaning. Challenges were inevitable. There were days when the baby cried for hours, when sleep deprivation made simple tasks feel monumental, and when worry gnawed at the edges of their hearts. Yet through it all, they found strength in the love they shared. Each other's support, the quiet moments of bonding, and the laughter that often accompanied minor mishaps provided a foundation that carried them through. The unexpected feature, once a source of curiosity and surprise, now brought a sense of comfort, a reminder that life's small mysteries could bring joy and connection. The parents also noticed how others reacted to the baby's feature over time. Strangers in parks or stores would sometimes comment, often with genuine curiosity or admiration. The parents used these moments as opportunities to teach, to explain that differences are natural and should be embraced. They realized that the feature was not just a personal story, but also a subtle lesson for the world around them, a way to encourage acceptance, understanding, and appreciation for diversity. Playtime became a source of joy and learning. The baby's tiny hands explored toys, fabrics, and textures, discovering the world with curiosity and wonder. The parents joined in, guiding small movements, encouraging exploration, and celebrating each tiny achievement. The unique feature became part of the play, a point of fascination and conversation that enriched the interaction and made each moment memorable. They laughed at small surprises, marveled at the baby's discoveries, and cherished the developing personality that was beginning to emerge. As the weeks passed, the parents grew more confident in their roles. They learned to anticipate the baby's needs, to soothe distress, and to celebrate achievements big and small. The feature that had once been a source of surprise now felt like a quiet, steady presence, a reminder of the wonder and unpredictability of life. It became part of the story they would tell over and over, a detail that made every memory more vivid, every photograph more meaningful, and every moment more special. Even in simple routines like bathing and dressing, the parents found opportunities for connection. They marveled at the softness of the baby's skin, the small details of tiny fingers and toes, and the way the unique feature set the child apart in subtle but meaningful ways. Each day was filled with discovery, and each moment became part of a growing narrative of love, care, and appreciation for the extraordinary life they had brought into the world. As the family settled into a more stable routine, they began to anticipate milestones and the small ways their child would grow and change. They imagined the first time the baby would recognize them, the first laugh and the first steps. They knew that life would continue to bring challenges and surprises, but they felt ready to face them together. The unique feature, once a surprise, had become a symbol of the beauty and unpredictability of life, a detail that would remain a cherished part of their child's identity forever. Through all the sleepless nights, feeding sessions, and quiet moments of reflection, the parents realized that the early days of parenthood were a mix of ordinary and extraordinary experiences. The unexpected feature had added a layer of richness to their journey, transforming small moments into memories they would never forget. It reminded them that life is full of surprises and that sometimes the things we do not expect can become the most meaningful parts of our story. By the end of the first month at home, the parents had grown more comfortable with the demands of caring for their newborn. They had learned to balance exhaustion with joy, routine with discovery, and worry with wonder. The baby's unique feature, once a source of surprise, had become a cherished detail, a small but constant reminder of the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this point. They looked at their child with a deep sense of love and appreciation, knowing that these early days were laying the foundation for a lifetime of memories, growth, and happiness. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks slowly grew into months. Life at home had settled into a rhythm, though it was a rhythm constantly shaped by the tiny life that had entered the world with its unexpected feature. The parents had grown confident in their care, finding joy in the small details that once felt overwhelming. The baby's unique trait had moved beyond surprise and become part of the story of everyday life, something that made their child feel even more extraordinary. Every morning, the parents would wake to the soft sounds of coos and tiny movements. They had become adept at reading the baby's moods and needs, responding with gentle touches and soothing words. Feeding, diaper changes, and playtimes had become moments of bonding, where laughter mingled with quiet reflection. The baby's feature, once a point of curiosity, now felt like a natural part of who they were. It added to the charm, making every smile and gesture even more memorable. Visitors continued to come, friends and family eager to see the baby's growth. Each reaction to the unique feature varied, but the parents no longer felt self-conscious. Instead, they embraced it as a conversation starter, using it to share stories of acceptance, individuality, and the wonder of life's surprises. Children, too, would sometimes point or ask questions, and the parents responded with patience and warmth, teaching that everyone has unique traits that make them special. The baby began to develop a personality. Small gestures like a deliberate stretch, a sudden giggle, or a tiny wave became cherished milestones. The parents celebrated each moment, no matter how ordinary it seemed, because they understood that these small experiences were building the foundation of a life filled with learning and love. The unexpected feature became part of these milestones, a subtle reminder that differences are a natural and beautiful part of being human. Playtime became a source of learning and joy. The baby explored textures, shapes, and colors with curious eyes and eager hands. The parents engaged in these activities, guiding gently while encouraging independence. Sometimes the baby's feature would spark curiosity, prompting questions or exclamations from the parents themselves as they marveled at the uniqueness. These small discoveries added color to ordinary routines and strengthened the bond between child and parents. Nighttime was a blend of quiet and activity. Evenings were spent soothing the baby, reading softly, or simply holding them close as the world outside grew dark. Sleep came in short bursts, but the parents found comfort in the rhythmic breathing and warmth of the child. The feature that had once surprised them now felt like a quiet celebration of individuality, a tiny reminder that life's unexpected details could bring profound joy. They learned to see the beauty in small moments, understanding that these early nights would become memories treasured forever.